Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlicker, shills, dead slicers, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks. I'm Useful Idiot. Welcome. And let's go to Japan. As long as we're talking about banker scum, there really is no equal to the banker scum that run the Bank of Japan and the things that they've done to perpetuate this mythology that somehow Japan is going to come out of this recession that's been going on since 1990 at least. And in fact, a recent article pointed out that this is the 26th fiscal stimulus plan since 1990. And one of the things I like about Japan is looking at Japan and realizing that as far as kicking the can down the road and keeping everything afloat, despite a rotting foundation, um, Japan shows us how far that can be sustained. So theoretically, even with all the damage that we see in the United States and all the damage we see in the Eurozone and around the globe, particularly in the financial community, in the financial sector, Japan is a good example that there really are no limits to how far this can be sustained and propped up. And in fact, the Bank of Japan said recently, quote, there's no limit to monetary easing, unquote. And so Japan says there's no limit to monetary easing, and they've done it 26 times since 1990, and sooner or later, I guess it's going to work. So now the latest one was in August. Well, actually, there's one since then, but back in August of 2016, Japan announced a new $273 billion package, and it ends up that we have the Bank of Japan ending up being a shareholder in 55 companies, the number one shareholder in 55 companies, and the largest shareholder of 474 big companies. So that's what's happened with this splurge, and we also see it going on with the giant pension plan in Japan. But here we have the Bank of Japan buying up so many corporate bonds that they are now the number one shareholder in 55 companies. Really pretty incredible. And to go back to the big picture, of course, they've had 26 fiscal stimulus since 1990, and they've also had pile up a massive amount of debt, unequaled in the world practically, amazing amount of deflation, and 6 recessions. And 18 of the last 25 stimulus packages crashed after only a month or so. And I think we're going to see the same thing with this new stimulus package, because that is the pattern. And in fact, since August, we have Japan announcing another new plan, and that's so extreme that even Bernanke would consider it in the United States, doing this with the Fed, but to overshoot its 2% inflation target. And then bond purchases are now completely unlimited, putting a cap on yields and promising to buy all bonds offered at that price. And two things are apparent right off the bat. One, of course, is nobody expects them to make their 2% inflation target, let alone overshoot it anytime soon. And then the fact that all these corporations and anyone else are going to create bonds that would never have existed, just to cater to the fact that the Bank of Japan is promising to buy everything they put out. So there's not, one could say there's going to be a lot of distortion there. But then we, like I said earlier, we also have Japan's government pension investment fund that's been beginning in 2014, started to plow money into Japanese and foreign stocks and bonds, $350 billion. And recently in 2016, they lost nearly $100 billion in value with the market drop, 51 billion just in one quarter. So an amazing amount. They lost a third of the money they invested in foreign stocks, and yet their reaction was to say that it was good news that there was, quote, room to buy now, unquote. So pretty startling that they share the same view as the government, that losing money and plowing money into these bonds, regardless of the consequences, just gives them more room to keep propping things up. So and like I said before, to go back to the big picture, not only has Japan had 26 fiscal stimuluses since 1990, but there's still the Nike the Japanese stock market is still 47% below its peak back in 1989, in spite of all of this stimulus. So at least the stimulus that we're getting in the United States is going a long way to pumping up the stock market. So anyway, so now Bank of Japan has also said that, quote, there's still ample space for further cuts in the negative interest rate, unquote. So they're prepared to make even more extraordinary measures. But Kuroda also said that, quote, the positive turnaround in the Japanese economy, unquote, is proof that everything's working. So anyway, let's go on to the 27th stimulus in Japan, the 28th stimulus in Japan. And once again, the Bank of Japan is the #1 kingpin banker scum in the world, and will continue to be so as they prop up the entire Japanese economy. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.